12 respectable guests sharing different successful career journey. Join us as we unveil the highlights of our 12 podcast episodes in this captivating video recap.
So, what would your number one advice be for anybody that at the moment is, relocating or looking to get a job within the finance or accounting sector? How should they go about it?
Well, look, like anything, I think you need to do your homework beforehand. Work out, how the market is. Speak to specialist recruiters, not just us. There's other recruiters in the market in the bigger firms that will have a finance accounting desk.
As a candidate, then, you'd need to be a lot more active than passive. You said networking, for example. So can you build on that? Like, how do you go about it? Because it's quite, it's hard to navigate around that, especially if you're new to the market. Where do you go?
Look, if you're not visible, you are invisible.
So from a business sense, from a job perspective, actually Abu Dhabi is underlooked, but it's actually where a lot of the decisions are made. So surely you want to be closer to where the decisions are made. So I'm like sitting in Dubai thinking, I want to try this place called Abu Dhabi.
We wanted to know, you've been here for 8 years in the UAE and you have actually witnessed a massive change in the tax landscape here. So how has your experience been as a tax professional in this region?
As you said, since 2018, we've seen lots of changes and it's a rapid transformation in the region and the tax landscape. We've seen VAT being introduced in KSA and the UAE. The tax policy is changing so rapidly. We're seeing hundreds of laws and regulations being introduced and published. It's very important to keep up with all these regulations.
I think that one challenge that all CFOs face, and I'm pretty sure, Connor, you can vouch for that, is the talent management. People are always looking for something better. So how do you retain them? How do you hire the right talent? And with the business requirement changing as well, the need for a real accountant probably is not there with all these technologies. You can do a lot more through technology. So you really want somebody who can think, analyze, and then present data.
Finance is definitely evolving. As a result, those that are looking for work need to evolve themselves, need to upskill. I think the market is so competitive, especially in this part of the world. What skills do you think those in finance, whether they're at the beginning of their career or whatever stage, what's important skills-wise that they need to really hone in on to remain current and relevant?
Look, I think one, you've got to understand what the technologies are out there. To see what technologies you could go into interview and they're using these. So you've got to be up to date with what kind of technology out there, whether that is RPA, whether that's AI in terms of forecasting tools, and all these things that can really help. And two, you've got to be inquisitive now. You've got to be the one asking the questions and not be stuck behind your desks as a finance person. As a finance guy who is supporting the business, how can you understand how an operational side works if you sit behind your desk? You have got to be really close with those operational teams, whether that's the ops teams in the restaurants, whether that's a marketing perspective, so you understand their thought process. For me, that's the challenge I'm making and want to change in our team, is how do we get you out more to understand the business? Because if you understand the business more, you can add value to the relevant teams and see where issues are.
So, being the only woman in a room full of men in Saudi Arabia, for example, in a meeting where you're the only woman in that room. But what I have seen in this region is the men are really respectful. And I believe that this is the place for us women to get ahead in our careers, to get into leadership positions. And that's because of Sheikh Mohammed's vision, what he's done with this gender balance council that there is. What I believe is that we don't need to man it up to get into the boardroom or leadership positions. There's no need for us to man up. What we need to do is woman up. We need to bring our own skills and competencies and the advantages of having us in those senior leadership positions, but you also need the men on the table.
Sorry, give our listeners a very interesting career path you moved on. You were an accountant.
Yes.
And then what were you?
I went into restructuring.
Yeah.
After that?
After that?
I was a baker.
Yeah, Jeff.
A self-employed baker.
Jeff the baker.
So
Jeff the baker.
What'd you bake?
So cookies and cakes, dairy-free. And
You look it.
I ate a lot of them as well.
That was good. Come on, that was good.
Are we going to talk about my career here at all, please? Or we're just going to make cheap weight jokes?
And if we were to compare the tax markets in UAE and KSA, what do you think are the most significant driving factors or key challenges in both of them?
Yeah, they're two very interesting markets, and we're lucky to be present in both of them, and so we know them very well. Saudi is the market of the volume and the size.
Right.
All businesses that we deal with are big. In the UAE, the economy is smaller compared to Saudi Arabia, and you can potentially deal with more mid-sized businesses or with local subsidiaries that have a smaller size than for example, in Saudi Arabia. There is a difference in sophistication, though.
Okay.
Usually, the UAE market, in terms of the types of transactions, the types of income, is more varied, is a bit more sophisticated. In Saudi Arabia, you'll find much more of like the traditional, I'm a buy-sell company, I'm a trading company, or simpler products.
So with that then, just digging in for our listeners who are auditors now. Let's just say you're doing external audit. What is the big difference from doing your day-to-day audit to being in this part of the business, in the advisory side? What day-to-day is it possible? Are the sort of people you're looking for coming from an audit background that want to sort of go down to this service line? So what would be the sort of key differences day-to-day then for that person?
I would say audit experience, being a consultant, the audit experience really helps, because in audit you really get into the hardcore. Yep. Reviewing the transaction, looking at the internal control over those transactions, and then tracing them back to how they are being reported in the financial statements. So this whole end-to-end review really helps. It basically helps clear your understanding. While on the consulting side, it's more about being part of the management, trying to understand the business rationale, objective of the client, and then trying to figure out what is the best way to structure the transaction. Yeah. So audit is a little bit of a post facto or post mortem. Yeah. The transaction has happened. How do you really account for it, report it, and audit it? Yeah. But consulting, a lot of the times, is you get involved during the transaction phase.
Or in your opinion, why do people want to set up in the region in particular? The startup scene seems to be booming. Is there any reason for that in the time that you've obviously been here and what you're experiencing at the minute?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, the UAE has always been very entrepreneurial, and Dubai in particular. It's always been, long before I came here. I mean, they've been known as traders and, business people. And a lot of the original family offices in the UAE and in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, the patriarch, more often not the patriarchs that founded those family office conglomerates, back in the 50s and the 60s and 70s, which are huge groups that we know now, the Majid Al Futtaims and the Al Tayers and the Al Futtaims and various others, Al Ghurayya Group and several others. I mean, they're very entrepreneurial. I mean, the patriarch and the family that set those up way back when were very entrepreneurially minded business people and very successful. So there's always been a culture of, we call it entrepreneurship now because it sounds cooler and more prestigious, but in those days, successful business people starting up various different lines of business. So there's always been that fabric, and Dubai in particular has always been a trading post and outpost, and people from various parts of the region and parts of the world who always come here to do deals and to set up businesses, etc. So they've always been accustomed to that. It's not alien to them. They're very used to that.
But have you found that in the UAE, companies are more susceptible to using smaller advisory businesses, or do you find that they always go to the big four or one of the bigger brands, or what's your thoughts on that?
I think it's different markets, different segments. So we aren't a business that are looking to compete in the big four space. There's a big four market, and that's well tried and tested because they're by definition big. But there's a sector of the economy, whether it's here or globally, that are our SMEs, they're owner managers, and they don't necessarily have the resources to be able to deal with the larger firms, and therefore smaller, more boutique firms, but who have the skills and the capability to deliver. I think there's a very clear market for that, and that's really the reason we established the business, to, if you like, support the small guys, and to be able to provide that bespoke service that a boutique organization can.
I mean, you do not get the Ronaldos or the Messis or the Verstappens and Woods of the world just by, harnessing their skills, going all solo and individually. There's been teams of coaches. There you have a head coach, you have a senior coach, you have a junior coach, you have a physio coach, you have a techniques coach, like a team of a dozen coaches focusing on a single individual. Professionals are no different. Yes, we execute our sport behind the screen, but yet I see professionals as sportsmen as well, right? I mean, why are we any different? And if people have the edge and if they really believe in themselves, there should be a platform to then a platform that they could look at and gain coaching for themselves.
Guys, make sure you please sign up on our community page on our website for the various areas.
Yeah, we've got women's page, health page, golf page.
One day we'll have a men's page.
No, never. So make sure to sign up to and it's on our website, Alchemy Search, so you'll be able to find it, and
keep an eye out for our next episode. Bye bye.